Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing a hysterectomy kind of Q&A, my experience with my hysterectomy, and I don't know, just like a kind of overview of what I went through, some of my tips and tricks. I just wanted to make this in case you are going through a hysterectomy, if you're about to. Maybe it'll help answer some questions or shed some light on my experience and, hopefully calm your nerves and maybe help you through the process a little bit. Hopefully this ends up being helpful to one person out there. So I got my partial hysterectomy. I had a robotic partial hysterectomy in March of 2020, right before, literally a week before everything got shut down. So I was very, very lucky that I got in right before, because I would have had to wait. Mine was a little bit different than a typical, partial hysterectomy, because I also had a bladder repair during the same time. So it was a partial hysterectomy plus a bladder repair. So just keep that in mind when I'm telling you guys kind of what went down, my symptoms, my process with healing and recovery and stuff, because I don't know, obviously, which parts are due to the hysterectomy and which parts might be due to the bladder repair as well. So like I said, just keep that in mind. This is just my experience. Your experience obviously could be different. It probably won't be the exact same as mine, but yeah, just take it with a grain of salt. So I had my hysterectomy, partial hysterectomy, when I was 27 years old. It was not by my choice. My uterus had ruptured during birth, and they were going to try to repair my uterus and bladder at the same time, but if they couldn't repair it, then they were going to give me a partial hysterectomy, which did end up happening. So they left my tubes, my fallopian tubes and my ovaries in my body. The reason that they did that is because I was 27 years old, so I really did not want to go into early menopause, which thankfully did not end up happening for me. And also because this was not my choice and I've always wanted a third child, my eggs are still in my ovaries. So, if we choose to go down the route of surrogacy one day, I could technically use my eggs and make sperm, and we could have our own biological baby inside somebody else. So those were the two reasons that they left those. They did take my cervix because my family history, actually, ovarian cancer runs in my family, and so does cervical cancer. So obviously removing your cervix, your chance of having cervical cancer is 0. So there was no reason to leave it in. Same with my ovaries. I mean, I could have taken them out because I know my risk for ovarian cancer is a bit higher than the normal person, but because I wanted to have a third baby and because I didn't want to go through menopause, I decided to take that risk for myself. Like I said, I did not go through early menopause. I don't have any symptoms of menopause, but I will say that my hormones were a little bit wackadoodle for a while after my surgery. So be prepared for that. And because I do still have my ovaries, when you still have your ovaries, you can have some symptoms of a typical cycle. I will say I do notice my hormones kind of going up and down during my 30-day cycle. And there are points where I do feel like my hormones, when you're about to have your period, at least for me, this was kind of my experience. Quite a few times I would kind of feel like I was gonna cry, and I didn't really know why. There was no exact reason why. I just kind of felt like this overwhelming, you're on the verge of tears kind of feeling for a couple days. And I do still go through that now as well, even though I do not get my period, obviously, because I do not have a uterus. I still do have some symptoms like that of my cycle, which is kind of interesting. So now I'm going to go through kind of my pre-op and my experience with my pre-op. My first piece of advice for you, if you're going in to have a partial hysterectomy or if you're going in to have any medical procedure at all, is to ask questions. Sit down with your husband or your partner or watch YouTube videos like this, do some research and take, some notes on your phone of all the questions that you have for your doctor, and do not be afraid to ask any question. There are no stupid questions. You should feel comfortable with whatever doctor you choose, to sit down and ask all the questions that you possibly have. And if you're getting red flags from the doctor, if they seem like they're kind of brushing you off or rushing you, then maybe you should reconsider and try and find another doctor, because it's very important for you to feel comfortable and feel like you are in the best hands possible when you are getting a surgery. And it is a very, I mean, mine was minimally invasive, I guess, but it is a big deal. It's a huge surgery. You are removing organs from your body, and you need to feel safe and comfortable. And you also need to know that all of your questions are being answered, and you need to feel as informed as possible before making this decision. Also, another big piece of advice that kind of goes hand in hand with that is to be an advocate for yourself. Do not be afraid to stand up for yourself. If you feel like something is wrong, or if you don't feel comfortable with something, you cannot be afraid to stand up and speak for yourself. In my situation, I was blessed and lucky enough to have a partner with me who had no problem advocating for me as well. And I hope that you guys do have that as well. A family member, a friend, a partner, someone who would be willing to advocate for you and be there with you, so you feel comfortable speaking up for yourself. I would personally advise you to kind of figure out your plan of how you want things to go, and also like where your boundaries are. Yes, I do want this. No, I absolutely do not want this, no matter what. Go over that with your partner, your friend, your family, whoever is there with you, and then they can be on the same page with you about kind of what you want done and what you don't want done, and they can also be there to advocate for you. My second piece of advice, and this is a big one, and it's a little TMI, we're talking about hysterectomies, so here's a warning right now. Please click out of this video if you don't want to hear anything TMI, but I'm going to share it with you guys because I wish someone would have shared it with me. So you need to take stool softeners and Senna S. S-E-N-N-A-S. Senna S. You need to take those two things. And even if you have no issues going to the bathroom right now, you go regularly, you're totally fine, take them and start them a few days before your surgery. Trust me on this. Trust me. After your surgery, and even during and before, you are going to be on a lot of pain medication and medication in general, and anesthesia and medication can back you up, and it is what would be it's not comfortable and it's not fun. I'm not going to share with you my personal story, but it was a very big problem for me, and just trust me on that. Take it so that you don't have to worry about that. You don't want to have to worry about that. That's the last thing you want to be worried about after your surgery. So take stool softeners and take Senna S. Those are two things that you need to purchase before your surgery. Another thing that you need to purchase before your surgery is Gas-X or some sort of gas medication as well. Okay, so as far as pre-op goes, as far as I can remember, my surgery was almost 2 years ago. It was like a year and a half ago. So I'm kind of just remembering as well as I possibly can. But beforehand, I did have to do a couple pre-op appointments. I had to get my blood drawn to see where my iron levels were and make sure everything was good. My iron was pretty low actually. So the day of my surgery, I did go in and get an iron transfusion in the morning. I did have to fast, so I could not eat or drink anything for 12 hours before my surgery. And I also, in the morning, had to take a pill, and I don't remember what it was called. If I can find the name, I will put it here. But I had to take one pill that changed the color of my urine, and it made my urine like an orange color. I don't really remember why they needed to do that. But again, that could have been because of my bladder issue as well. But I had to take that. And then a few hours before my surgery, I want to say it was like 3 hours before my surgery, I had to drink a bottle of Gatorade, a full bottle of Gatorade, and they wanted me to drink it within 30 minutes. That was the only thing I was allowed to eat or drink before my surgery. And again, I don't really remember exactly why. I know it had to do with the electrolytes, but again, that could have been my bladder issue. I don't know, but that's what they had me do. Okay, so like I said before, I did have to get an iron transfusion right before my surgery. I got it a few hours before, and then we had driven over to the hospital, and it was a pretty seamless process after that. Obviously, you change your gown. Most people will not have a bladder issue like me, so you will have to provide a urine sample. For me, they just took that out of my catheter because I had a catheter because my bladder was ripped open, so I could not give them a urine sample. But you will have to. They take your height, your weight, their blood pressure, like all the typical things, and then they will insert your IV. So another piece of advice: if you don't like needles like me, I am deathly afraid of needles. I do not like them, and IV needles especially, like they're so big and they hurt, and they always like put it in the crease of your my like arm right here, so it would really irritate me and hurt me, and like you could feel the needle digging around for me. It was very uncomfortable, and I honestly had a lot of anxiety surrounding that. So I spoke to my nurse when she first came in, and I kind of told her how I was feeling, and she was like, don't worry, I will totally help you out. She numbed up my arm. I don't remember what she put on my arm, but she numbed it up with some like topical cream, and that helped me a lot. So again, if you're feeling like worried or scared about anything during the process, speak to your doctor about that, and also tell your nurses when you get to the hospital, because at least in my experience, everybody that I worked with was so kind and so nice and was more than willing to do like an extra step or go out of their way a little bit to make my experience more comfortable and kind of ease my nerves. So don't hesitate to like reach out to your doctors and your nurses to tell them how you're feeling, because 9 times out of 10 they'll be more than happy to help you and make your experience better. So after my IV was inserted, they kind of just let you hang out. They'll talk you through the process. Another thing that I was very nervous about was the anesthesia. I had never been put under general anesthesia before this. So again, I spoke to my doctor about it, and they helped ease my fear, and yeah, it was really good. Again, my nursing team was amazing as well. I said goodbye to my family, and they wheeled me back to the OR. And you know, they let me pick out some music to listen to because I was so nervous. They were like, you know, who do you like? Do you want to put on Lizzo? Do you want to put on this? Do you want to put that? So we put on Lizzo, and it was just a really, really good experience. So I was awake for a couple minutes when they wheeled me back to the OR, and they kind of have you like lean on one side, lean on this side, like put your arms here, put your arms there. I had to like put my arms on like the little board, and they strap them down, and then they gave me the general anesthesia. They literally just put a mask over your face, and they tell you to take deep breaths in and to start counting backwards, and then I woke up. So obviously after that, I don't remember what happened. I was not awake. So now I'm gonna go through the post-op. So post-op for me, again, I had never had any experience with general anesthesia, so the way it affected me, I woke up really cold. I was freezing cold, and I remember my nurse coming in, and I remember just crying, and she was like, what's wrong? Like, you know, what can I get you? Are you okay? And I was like, you know, I really just want Nate, like, which is my partner's name. Obviously, if you're new here, that's my partner's name, Nate. I'm Marina, he's Nate. And the nurse was very, very sweet. She's like, okay, no problem. Like, I'll call him back here. I just wanted to wait till you woke up for him to come back, so no problem. So he came back, and I also had told her that I was very cold. So they had put this blanket on me, and it was so weird. I have never seen this before in my life. It was kind of cool. They put like this sheet over you, and it has like arm sleeves and everything, and then it blows up with hot air. Like there's like a tube that runs out of it, and it blows up with hot air, and it kind of fills up like almost like a jumping pillow. Like, have you guys seen those at like pumpkin patches, those jumping pillows that kind of fill with air and blow up? That's kind of how it was. So you're inside of it, and it's blowing warm air at you. I don't remember this part, but Nate told me that when he had came back, I guess I had told the nurse that I was still cold even after that, so she had brought me like warm blankets and like wrapped them around my head like a freaking, like I looked like it was in like a cocoon, like I had like a little nun like wrapped up in blankets. I had the little airbag. But yeah, I remember being very sad and very cold, and a little grouchy. I also remember trying to talk to Nate, and I wanted to talk to him so bad, but like I couldn't. Like it's almost like, it's like a very strange feeling. Like it's almost like your body is so weak that your brain is working but your mouth can't, and like you want to speak but you physically cannot because of the energy that it takes to speak. So I remember kind of dozing in and out of sleep over and over again, waking up wanting to talk to Nate, and then like wouldn't be able to and fall back asleep. So another thing for post-op, I had a catheter. Again, I don't know if this is typical or not, probably not, but I had a catheter and I had to keep it in for 2 weeks because of my bladder surgery. They had to obviously put stitches in my bladder, and they didn't want my bladder filling up with urine until the stitches fully healed, because obviously the pressure from it being full could burst that. So we did have that for 2 weeks, and the reason why I told you earlier in this video to also have Gas X or like some sort of gas medication at home before your surgery is because nobody told me about this, but my gas pain was horrendous. So I guess I'll show you too, like, so I'll go back here. I kind of jumped forward, but with my surgery, it was robotic, thank goodness. They did not have to cut me open. And they made 5 incisions, and I'll show you guys my scars just in case you're interested. Okay, so here are my scars. I have one here, one here, one in my belly button, which you cannot see, one here, and one here. So 5 incisions. It's also just an FYI, it's been about 1.5 years for me, like I said, since I've gotten the surgery. I have not really put any oils or like scar creams on these at all. They have lightened quite a bit. So if you're worried about the scars, if you're getting a robotic surgery, mine were really not that bad. So I had 5 incisions, and what they do is they kind of cut open those incisions and they put the arms of the robot through those incisions, right? So they can see inside. The middle is the camera, and then these are the 4 arms of the robot, and they can literally take things out of you and suture you up and stuff with a robot. It's wild. So to get the robot arms in there, they have to fill your belly up with air. So they fill your belly up with as much air as possible to give the robot arms like room to move around. So afterwards, they try and get as much gas out of you as possible, but obviously there will still be gas that's trapped inside of you. And I never knew this, but because of that, I had gas pain, and it was up here in my freaking shoulder. So weird. I was like, what is going on? So I remember being in so much pain. It was like I was crying, because when you're sitting up, due to gravity, the gas rises, and this is where it will sit, at least in my experience. So it almost felt like I had like a bubble inside of my body that like wanted to pop, but it couldn't pop because it was like right here. So it's like so much pressure, and like, I don't know, it was the strangest feeling, but it was so painful. So they gave me gas medication in the hospital, but I would say that did not subside probably for like 3 or 4 days. It was pretty bad. And then I continued to take gas medication when I got home for probably the next 2 weeks, because even after that subsided, I still had some gas pain in my stomach. Same thing, where it just kind of felt like it was like trapped, like you couldn't get it out, like almost, I know it's weird and uncomfortable, but like almost like a fart, and you can't get it out, like it's just kind of sitting there, the pressure. So that was uncomfortable. So take your gas medication. Again, make sure you're keeping up on that. My biggest advice to you too about your medication is to set timers, write everything down, or have your care person, if you have a care person, have them write everything down. Make sure they're writing down everything the doctor says, or ask if they can record a little voice note of the doctor, like kind of telling you what you need to be doing, how much medication you need to be taking, and how many hours you need to be taking it at, what you can kind of overlap and what you can't. Like there's some drugs that you can take, like you can take ibuprofen and then 2 hours later stack that with something else, you know what I mean, like kind of switch off and rotate. So ask your nurses and doctors if they'll write it down for you, or if you can record them speaking about it. And obviously, if you have a care person like Nate, he was the one who was on top of all of my medications. He was the one who was coming in every 2 hours and saying, take this, take this, take this, take this, here's your water, take it. But if you don't have that, set timers, and again, write it down in your phone and make sure to set timers so you don't forget. So another weird thing after, like post-op of surgery, that nobody had ever told me, and I've never seen this or experienced this in my life, was my saliva. Like, okay, so you have to fast obviously 12 hours before your surgery. My surgery ended up actually being pushed back. I think it was 2 hours late because something was going on in the surgery before me that was taking longer. They had complications in that surgery. So by the time I was out of surgery, out of recovery, post-op, all that stuff, it was so late at night. Oh gosh, it was probably like 7 o'clock at night or something. And my surgery originally was scheduled for like 10 a.m. I think. So I was starving. So hungry. So my sweet sister, she had Teddy Grahams in her bag with her, and she's like, oh, like, do you want something? Offering me all these snacks, and I'm like, oh, Teddy Grahams sound good. So I started to eat them, and I was like, what is happening? Like, they almost felt like, I don't even know how to describe this. It was almost like they were stale. Like you would I started chewing them, and like they wouldn't like crumble. They would almost like mush. And I was like, what is happening? And I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to be rude and tell my sister that she brought like stale Teddy Grahams, because she's trying to be helpful to me and like give me a snack right now because I'm starving. So I didn't say anything. So I was just like drinking my water or whatever. And then later on, Nate had went down to Starbucks and got me like a little panini that I loved. It was like my favorite one. It was like that chicken bacon, I don't freaking know, pesto one. It's delicious usually. So I take a bite of it, and again, same thing happens. It's like balling up in my mouth. Like it almost was like, I just don't know how to describe it. It was like, it was just balling up, and it tasted disgusting, and it was like the worst thing ever. And I'm like, what is happening? So I asked the nurse, and she's like, oh yeah, sometimes anesthesia can have that effect on you, where like you don't or you're not producing enough saliva or something. So like, I don't know, when you're eating stuff, it won't crumble. It'll like mush up and like ball up in the back of your mouth. So I didn't even really eat much of anything, I think, for like the first 24 to 48 hours because that was happening. The general anesthesia, I guess, that's what they told me at least, was creating that effect in me. So I don't know. I don't really know how you can prepare for that or like avoid that, but just an FYI, it might happen to you. That I've never heard of that before, but that happened to me and it was the worst because like the first thing you want to do is just eat. You went through all this trauma to your body and all you want is a freaking sandwich. And you can't even have that. So for me, I was very scared of the recovery. I was very scared that it was going to be extremely painful. And it was hard, but I've had a C-section before. So if you've had a C-section here, the best thing I could compare it to is like the recovery of a C-section, but without that giant incision. So I have a huge incision, obviously, after you have a C-section. So it's similar to that where you're having cramping, you're very weak. I was bleeding, obviously, passing a lot of things. And it was just very uncomfortable. I was very tired. My body was very weak. But the worst part for me about having a C-section was like you use your abdominalis for everything, sitting up, walking, bending, everything, and you don't have that big incision. So I think the recovery was easier than I was like thinking it would be, but it's not easy. I don't want to like minimize it. It's definitely not easy. It's a huge recovery and process. But for me, it definitely, I hyped myself up a little bit more than I needed to. It wasn't that bad. It's hard, but it's not the worst thing I've ever experienced. So try not to be scared. I was like terrified of it and it wasn't that bad. Okay, so for recovery, what my experience was, I went home that, I think I stayed one night in the hospital, yes. And then I went home the next day and I rested pretty much that first day. I kind of just like slept that first day. And then I was kind of up on my feet here and there for the first week. The first week was the worst part for me. The first week, obviously you're coming off anesthesia, you're on painkillers and you're kind of on drugs, you're bleeding a lot. I had the catheter, so I was still having to empty that constantly. And it was a lot. Like I felt like my body was just very traumatized and I needed like a week to fully kind of recover. I'd say after a week, I felt better. Like after I left the hospital, let's say I was at like 5% of my like physical capacity. After a week, I'd say I probably was at like 25%. Nate ended up going back to work, I believe, after that first week. So it was just me and the kids, and I did not take them out to like the grocery store or like do much with them. We were just kind of at home, but I was able to like care for my children very minimally. I wasn't like, super mom cleaning the house or anything, but I still could, physically care for them after that first week. I'd say 2 weeks, I was about like, I was feeling good. I was feeling much more like myself. I wasn't 100%, but I was feeling good. And I'd say it probably took me about 4 weeks to feel 100% myself and like 100% good. They removed my catheter at my 2-week post-op appointment and everything was fine with that, with my bladder. Again, that was because of my bladder. So if you're just having a partial hysterectomy and not a bladder surgery, like a repair, you wouldn't have to do that. But I remember at 2 weeks feeling good. Like I could wear my normal pants again. I could like, get up and take the kids outside. Again, I'm not saying I was like scrubbing my house from top to bottom, but I was okay. I'd say, if you're working, obviously prepare for at least 1 week off, maybe 2. But at that 2-week mark, I was feeling pretty good. Post-op, like how I'm doing now, kind of if there's any symptoms or anything after the fact. So like I said, I did not go into premenopause. I have no menopausal symptoms. Thank you, God. I also do not have any issues with my bladder as far as like, I was very worried. Like I was very worried that I would be leaking all the time or something like that. That's not the case. I'm feeling pretty good. I did have pain in my ovaries. It would happen, it was very hit or miss. I started tracking it. It happened like once a month, so we were thinking that it was due to my ovulation schedule, but then it was kind of happening like randomly hit or miss, and it eventually went away. So I did have that pain in my ovaries, I'd say for the first year after my hysterectomy, and I don't know for sure that it was related, but I do have a very strong feeling that it was. I'm not sure if it was just kind of my body trying to figure out what the heck is going on and like try and come to a new normal or what was going on, but I did have that pain. I will say that I do have major bladder pain if my bladder gets really full. Again, that's not really with the hysterectomy, that's because of my bladder repair. It just isn't how it used to be, and if I wait too long and it gets too full, it's extremely painful for me. Oh, another tip that I forgot to add in earlier, for recovery, I will link the adult diapers that I wore after my recovery. I know it's kind of funny, but it actually really helped. I loved them a lot. I will also link the pads that I used. Big tip, get some adult diapers. I know, you know what? I know it's not cute, but you kind of just have to leave your dignity at the door for a couple weeks, you know? Like, no one's judging you, it's fine, and you should get it because they were the best thing ever. So I'll link those below for you. Okay, last thing I'll leave you off on in this video is a few pros for my partial hysterectomy. I do not have to get pap smears anymore, so that's amazing. I don't have to go yearly for my pap smears, so that's great. I have to say I have no risk for cervical cancer because I do not have my cervix, so that's obviously a pro because we don't want to put ourselves at risk for cancer, so any way we can diminish our risks is good. And the last thing that's the pro, which is the most obvious one, is I don't have a period anymore. And I'm grateful for that. Even though it sucks, I did not want to have a partial hysterectomy at 27. I'm grateful I don't have a period anymore. That's amazing. On that note, I'm gonna end the video here. Thank you guys as always for watching and supporting my channel. If you guys have any questions about hysterectomy, if you guys are about to get a hysterectomy, if you have any concerns, whatever, leave them in the comments below. I would love to answer any questions you guys have or just kind of, you know, support you in any way that I can going through your surgery. And yeah, I wish you guys all the best and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.